Hello, innovators. I'm Todd Wyant, and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Applied Software Great Tech Group. You're invited to join our conversation to model the future of construction innovation and the digital transformation adventure of this great industry. My guest today is Nathan Wood, Executive Director of Construction Progress Coalition and repeat guest of the show. For those that don't know Nathan, he understands how rewarding the design and construction process can be when technology and culture embrace a new era of innovation. Welcome back to the show, Nathan. I'm getting some feedback too.
Oh man, good to be here through multiple different audio devices here. It seems like we're all having technical difficulties this morning. As technologists, it seems to be our Murphy's Law.
That's right.
Good to be here.
It's a good start to it. Me having to log back in 3 times to able to get it going, but hey, we're here.
Yeah, hopefully no echo, but no, good to be here as well, and excited to talk about everything that happened in person, which is so great about not having technical difficulties when you are in person.
Yeah.
Although there is still the whole audio and PowerPoint and everything else, so it seems like you can never really escape technical failures.
That's part of the fun of doing live events. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, like a live podcast in front of a staged audience, that worked well.
Yeah, with somebody coming in remotely as well too, throwing that out.
Yeah, that was fun as we found that out for those who listen religiously.
That's right. And you, I think, are breaking the record. I have to confirm this, but I'm pretty sure you are now the most repeat guest of Bridging the Gap.
Wow. I don't think I've ever won an award. That's an honor.
Yeah. Well, thanks for.
We'll have to confirm that though. Definitely. Yeah. Stat check that.
Oh, Eric is coming back on. That means something's wonky. Nathan, you just had looked like a super successful AEC Integration Summit. Can you tell everybody kind of what it is? What's the point? Why are you gathering everybody out in Denver in the middle of February?
Besides skiing,
it's a good draw for me.
As you're well aware, yeah. I mean, why else would you have a conference in February in Colorado if you're not going to go skiing? So that's rule number one. But no, the real reason we got 70 folks ranging across architecture, engineering, construction, trade contractors, owners, as well as a whole slew of technology partners that are coming together to solve these shared pains around interoperability. How are we sharing data between these different players that need to share data at the project level? So I think we've moved beyond just I have a project management system and I have an ERP system and I need to share certain cost or timesheets or other things, to now the level of RFIs and submittals and change orders and pay apps and RFPs and prequals that we can now start to standardize at an industry level. And it starts by having those conversations of why should those different parties come together and ask their software providers to do that, and how should we do that in a way that's really going to accelerate the industry and lead us to digital transformation and not just the kind of baseline digitization.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the takeaways from the workshops? Actually, maybe let's even back up. So what happens? Describe the workshop for those who don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I resist saying the word conference because it really is. It's not a conference at all. It's sort of a series of parallel workshops. We have 6 different teams that range in topics from, I mentioned, an RFP proposal to RFI integrations to submittals to how do you set up a work breakdown structure that evolves across the project lifecycle. So we had 6 different topics, each led by a team lead and 7 other participants that have those range of perspectives for that given scenario, and they go through a mock transformation essentially process where they're setting up the current state of how do we typically do it today that is broken, what is the root cause of why we do it that way, and how do we improve upon that. So it's 4 different breakout sessions that go through the digest, debate, decide, and deliver format. And so Just Sample did a fantastic job emceeing and helping me kind of go through this laborious process. But I think it's super enlightening for the group. It's very engaging. And as we keep saying, the challenge is that we're not communicating effectively. And so essentially this whole common data exchange CDX framework is really around getting that clarity very quickly between different perspectives, that we're all different experts in our own fields, but we therefore create our own jargon and semantics and whatever. And so how do we communicate those differences and where those similarities are? That's really what this workshop covers over 2 days.
What I loved about it last year was getting all the different stakeholders and different perspectives around the table talking about one singular topic, but you had people that normally don't interact with each other, and they would be talking about their pains and their kind of workflow of like, well, yeah, it's because you dummy do this, and they were like, well, actually, we're having the same issue. We just start framing it in different ways and using different terminology. And they're like, oh, I never knew that you went through that same experience as well too. And just to see the light bulbs go off, I was really looking forward to that this year. I had 5 people throwing up to keep me from coming this year.
And we were so sad to miss you. Yeah, we definitely sent our condolences, as you'll hear in the recordings, of course. But we knew you were there in spirit.
That's right. What were those any big light bulb moments that happened this year?
I think, how quickly everybody could get on the same page, and really where folks took the opportunity to articulate using the CDX framework. A lot of the feedback from last year's session that I know you're part of it last year was that we didn't have any handout manual. Like, we very quickly went through those definitions of what is a stakeholder, what is a persona, what is a system, what is a document of record, and how do we, create these exchanges that go through applications and activities. We use all these verbs and nouns and throw them out without very much definition behind them. So having that program and having that structure that folks could go and refer to when they're in their breakouts, I think really was great to see the outcome and see how different folks interpret it in different ways. Because we always are toying with, how structured versus how loose do we make the format, because you want things to be loose and innovative so that they bring more ideas and they help improve it. But also the feedback is always, well, we want more structure, we want more definition, because naturally we're all trying to get towards more standardization. But I think it's been a nice kind of back and forth to figure out what is that middle ground where project teams can come together and determine their custom way of communicating and collaborating and exchanging information in a way that uses existing standards and references standards and gives them sort of that pick list of how they want to mash them up together.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the ambition behind it. So they all come together, they form this team for a couple of days, dive into a problem, and then they all go home back to their normal regular day jobs. What happens with this great information afterwards?
Yeah, well, so there were a ton of cameras there. We definitely, took from your script and brought as many cameras as possible to capture this and put stuff online of what did happen and what comes out of it. But ultimately, they start and end with a how might we statement, an objective that has 3 components: the how might we, the in ways that, and the so that. So they all kind of follow a similar format, and they'll actually evolve it and recreate it at the end of the 2 days. So whatever they started with is not necessarily what they end with. And that I think is kind of the whole purpose of the learnings of it, and what people take away from it is that this is a muscle that we need to work on, that we need to flex, and that we need to improve, of just situational innovation and being able to work with different perspectives, understand their data needs, and come up with a solution that is equitable for everybody. And so doing that very quickly is something that we need to get better at. And that's a lot of, what we hope to get out of this. And then if there are, standards that are developed and spurred off through, partner collaboration partner organizations, or, APIs and other solutions that are developed because they, came up with a roadmap that, came from one of these summits, that's also a great unintended or intended benefit. But I think, everybody comes in with a little bit different thing that they want to get out of it. But it seems like, all around, the feedback was very positive, that value was gained by all.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Can you walk through the anchors to rockets exercise and what you do to kind of create awareness and problem solve?
Yes. And kudos to Jake Olson and the formerly leading the Dado team, and what was back then, I think before it was even Link, and a workshop that we did with a group called Think Wrong and Mach 49, and I learned this exercise that was shared. So I have to give credit where it's due, but it's essentially a design thinking work exercise that has 4 steps that allows you to look again at that current state of what's happening today that's not working or that you want to change. The anchors being, what are the things that are keeping that thing in place? What are those root causes that are not allowing us to change it? We then move to that future state in the 3rd step, which allows us to agree on, what are those conditions of the future state that we all want to seek. And then the hardest part is the rockets. What are the actions? What are the changes? What are the steps that need to be taken to move ourselves from that current state, to remove those anchors that exist in place and get us to that shared future state? So just by, again, breaking it into those 4 steps, I think is really helpful for folks to understand the process of innovation and of change management, and get everybody on the same page throughout each of those 4 steps.
Is there one of those categories that you see is maybe harder to kind of wrap your brain around or get people to really start throwing out ideas?
I mean, either the anchors or the rockets. Obviously, I think, the current state, what it is, and the future, what you want it to be, are kind of the easy things. It's, how it's in place today, the anchors, and how you're going to get it to the future, the rockets, that are the 2 hardest. So, the first one being really acknowledging what are those root causes, what are those anchors, is kind of the hidden hardest one. I think a lot of folks would argue that rockets is the hardest one of, how are you really going to change this, where you feel like you're kind of stuck, especially in this industry where, depending on where you are in that contract hierarchy, you feel like you're stuck a lot of times. But I think a lot of that we tell ourselves that, and we need to see other examples where folks are doing things differently and are changing the game and changing contracts and improving project delivery, so that others can spread that idea and rise the tides, as we continue to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up anchors as one of the struggle areas, because my initial thought would be that anchors would be maybe easier for a lot of people because everybody loves to throw out what's negative and complain. But then, as you were just talking, I was like,
bad
just stay like at this level, not going all the way down.
Yeah, getting to the right anchors is difficult to do.
Yeah,
getting to the easy surface level anchors that aren't really anchors, they're just like buoys almost.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
I didn't go all the way down to the lobster trap on the bottom of the ocean floor. So that kind of ties in one of the kind of the main deconstructed keynote panel with trying to figure out where your biases lie. How, first off, talk about the panel, but then kind of dovetailing into where our biases are. How do you even begin to start identifying that?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you, Todd and Applied, for allowing Brent and Dr. G. So Brent Darnell is with Brent Darnell International. He's actually in your neck of the woods in Atlanta, and is an amazing person, someone I strive to be every day, but former construction superintendent to executive, and now is an expert in emotional intelligence and really teaching the power of compassion and empathy and diversity inclusion as that, older boomer generation white male perspective. So, to have, as I've always said, when trying to sell technology internally at a general contractor, like if you can get the crustiest old white superintendent to, sell that to it, it's gonna be way better than any millennial trying to sell that tech out to the field. And so I think same sort of thing to try and convince those in the audience that really are the ones that need to change. He's an amazing perspective. So he did some awesome exercises on bias and the inherent bias that we all have, that we have to almost kind of understand and have our own compassion for, that it is a natural state of mind. But then the more we accept it, the more we can start to understand it and control it and overcome it. And we talked a lot about with Dr. G and with Alice about, the data behind why we should be caring about inclusion and diversity and belonging, because we're losing a huge chunk of talent that's leaving the industry, as we're seeing in a lot of these survey results that we put out last year with the Construction Talent Retention Survey. So it was a really cool way of kind of presenting some information from the survey quickly, presenting different perspectives that are really subject matter experts in the different fields of where we do need to change, and then putting that back into the audience's lap and doing that anchors to rockets exercise that really brought it all together. It was just a really cool experience. And as you know, from the prep calls, it was very fun to kind of organically come up with that format over the 90 minutes. And the feedback was super positive.
Yeah. What was the reaction in real time? Were people kind of squirming in their chairs? Were they super engaged and or were they pushing back on certain things? What was the feel?
I think, before we got into the workshopping, there was a little bit of I won't say pushback, but like questioning as to, why should we be so concerned with the color of their skin, or if they have tattoos or not, or like, why are we judging them at their surface level? And kind of this overly concerned with not wanting to be judgmental to that. But, to me, I feel like that's part of what that problem is like, well, no, like we do have to accept that is part of it. And to go past that, not to just, ignore that it exists. I think there's a difference between understanding and accepting natural biases and working to overcome them versus ignoring that they ever existed in the first place because you're so woke. Pardon my bad use of political terms, but I think that's where we're at, right? And that was part of what I think made it cool too, is that we were in a safe place where you could say something like that, and if someone wanted to call it out, they would call it out, and we did have a few people make statements that were maybe slightly misogynistic or something like that, and get called out for it, and I think that's part of the experience, right? Like you need to see what it's like to make a mistake, get called out, learn from it, and move forward, and that it's okay to make a mistake, so that people aren't afraid to say anything, but that they do learn where that line is of what's appropriate to say today that might have been different 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Was there any advice from the panel on how to bring that environment back into the workplace to make it safe to say something that maybe it was inarticulate and you kind of want to do it
absolutely
get called out by it?
Yeah, right. No, and that was the beauty of having 4 different teams. So basically Brent had one whiteboard corner, Dr. G had another, Alice had one, and we had Todd Sutton and Rachel from Zachary Construction man the 4th one. And so the 4 different topics were building a more inclusive innovation, corporate innovation program, building a more inclusive and innovative diversity and equity program. And actually, I have them written down here because I don't want to make sure I don't get this wrong. But they definitely covered, the corporate program as well. So how do you bring more innovation into your inclusion and diversity programs, as well as bring more inclusion into your innovation programs? So we had 4 different topics that span the 4 different parts of the room, and really put it back on the audience to come up with those ideas. And it was really amazing what they did come out with. We got recordings of all those, and we'll be putting those findings up on YouTube to share so that others can take those into their organization as well.
Nice. Very cool. So you guys did the survey. Two-part question. I like my 2-part questions. Why'd you do the survey? And then any surprising findings coming out of that survey?
Yes. So all roads lead back to Sasha Reed, of course. But between Alice and Sasha Reed, and got connected with Yuhi at AGC of California, who's now leading their diversity and inclusion program. We had help from folks at NAWIC, as well as the YOPS program. And so we got And of course, Alice was a huge part of it with brick and mortar. That was a huge financial supporter that helped us get the funding to work with Pulsely. And Pulsely does they do large Fortune 500 corporate surveys around exit surveys or employee satisfaction surveys. If you've ever taken those before, and do very, very deep analytics. And so they had actually never done an industry-wide kind of company agnostic survey before. So it was new for them as well. But we all got together and put together a survey because we wanted to better understand, again, why are those that are leaving the industry leaving. So that was our target, was a mix of those that are happy in the industry or formerly industry and left, or formerly industry and thinking about leaving. And to not only understand why, but also understand who they represent. Are they parents? Are they LGBTQ plus? Do they represent different minorities, so that we could get that demographic background and get that comparison, get those analytics. So and doing that inside of a construction industry that is predominantly white male is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. And so we're very strategic in kind of how we ask those questions and how we brought that together to get as many responses as possible, and definitely want to continue to promote both the findings from last year that have been very insightful for folks and very helpful to kind of make that case for a lot of these programs that are needed. But also to encourage funding for another survey to open this up to get a broader audience and get a better capture of the industry and really see where we're at and continue to measure ourselves, because again, that's very much core to the vision of CPC, is changing how we measure both project performance, company performance, and individual performance.
Yeah. So what does success? How do you measure that success? What does it look like across the industry?
Well, it comes down to why are folks leaving their companies, and are they leaving the industry? So, like, of course, you should see folks leaving their companies for advancing roles or better pay. Like that's to be expected. But when you see things like harassment or conflict with a manager or work-life balance issues as like other top leading issues, those are the things that are kind of the red flags to the folks over at Pulsely that see this data all the time. And they can kind of point those things out, and those were certainly part of the findings, was the rate of both certainly conflict with a manager, as well as the harassment one as well, are certainly issues that we need to take control of if we're going to continue to attract the best and brightest talent for the industry.
Mm-hmm. So shifting gears some more holistically across the industry, what do you think is one of the biggest trends that's coming down in 2023?
Oh, across everything?
Yeah.
That's switching gears. All right.
We're going big.
Well, certainly biased from my worldview, but I think this term of interoperability is no longer that deer in headlights term. That it really is down to, I understand how important data ownership and privacy and also transparency and the ability to share it is, but I need to have control over my ability to do that. And so that seems to be kind of the growing trend in these conversations, is that technology is everywhere, but everyone's going to have their own technology. So if we don't figure out how those technologies talk to each other, we're not going to solve any of these problems. So it obviously fits very well with the CDX framework and everything we're trying to do to solve that problem. So might be a biased answer, but that's where I'm seeing things going.
I'll allow a biased answer. That's all right. That's all right.
Admittedly biased.
That's right. What's the next step then for the industrialization of construction?
One of the things that did come out of the summit that was really interesting, Tim Spina was there, who, if you don't know Tim, he's very well connected within the trade contractor and union trade space. And so he is well connected with a group, IDEA, and they are focused on interoperability of data around equipment manufacturers and equipment distributors, and how they work together to have transparency of what equipment availability is, what the pricing is, and then ideally, all the data sheets and all the submittal packages and everything that kind of comes with it is part of that package as well. So very interested to bring them into the conversation, learn more about what they've done to date and maybe what they haven't done to date. That, as those of us that work more in the submittal and as-built handover side of the world could imagine, there could be some new opportunities for them to explore. So it's every week it feels like we learn about a new group within the industry, a new faction that has created some standard for their specific exchange. And that just gets us more excited, because that's the whole point, is that we need to connect all these dots together of who's already done it and start, storytelling on how we can, connect even larger dots.
Yeah. So with all those kind of new things coming up, what does innovation really look like for construction this year?
I think it's core. It's about communication. If we're not on the same page about why we're even coming to the table to solve a problem, or what that problem is, we're kind of stuck in the mud. So I think with all this, almost overflow of technology, it feels like we've come to this point of clarity where like we really need to be clear about what our definitions are and what our requirements are. So to me, like innovation is all about getting back to people communicating what their process should be so that technology can better support that in that order.
Yeah. If you just communicate and share upfront, makes it easier. I won't get on my soapbox with
In
that right
theory,
now, but
yeah, I know. Easier said than done.
That's right. That's right. Well, how do people
There is
find?
such a thing as too early, because
That's
if
true.
it's not
That's
ready
true.
yet,
Fair enough.
then it's confusing because you're not effectively communicating. And so I think, that's something that we really need to challenge in the industry, is where are those new lines of what we would call a boundary of definition. What does it need to be from a program requirements? The boundary of alignment being, do we agree on more or less what it should look and what the function of it is, so that you can then let those shop drawings and all those fabrication go off to reach the boundary of realization that then releases to fabrication. And so, depending on if you're design hard bid or if design build or IPD or otherwise, those lines may be drawn at very different times.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're always still those 4 different lines.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, the more we can come back and communicate more effectively, where it doesn't really matter if you use the old language or the new language, as long as we clearly define these key terms of stakeholders, personas, activities, exchanges, boundaries, we can start to help technology better equip us to solve these problems. But it really is a two-way street, or sort of a chicken and the egg, that we're just every year learning more about how far we have to go.
It's good. It keeps us all excited to move the ball forward.
Hey, I still got a long career ahead of me, and no shortage of problems to solve. No shortage of shared pains.
There you go. There you go. How do people find out more information about you and CPC and connect with you?
Yeah, so constructionprogress.org. You can check out all the different initiatives under the initiatives tab. Again, the construction talent retention surveys on there, all the information about the AEC Integration Summit that we just had, and we'll be posting videos up there shortly here from each of those. But you can read about those teams, and again, we'll be having upcoming virtual roundtables every other month that Todd will be moderating, along with other folks, that are a great way to take 90 minutes away and have some of these conversations virtually with pretty light lift. And then, looking forward to setting our date for next year's summit as we head somewhere warmer for those who don't like to go to the cold. But don't worry, every other year we'll still be coming back to Denver.
Is that the plan? You're going to rotate away?
We've taken feedback that some of the folks don't like coming to the cold. So now that we feel comfortable and have our feet underneath us, we're going to take it on the road and head somewhere south. So haven't confirmed the hotel yet, so TBD, but it will be coming to a warm weather city near you.
Okay. Changing
Q1
it up a bit.
2024.
Nice. Was it as cold this year as last year in Denver?
No, it was not. It was actually
what are they complaining
nice
about this year? Last year was freezing.
Yeah, it was very cold last year. The room always somehow figures out how to be kind of cold, because people open the door to the balcony and it lets cold air in. But you can't make everybody happy.
That's right.
Thankfully, we had long sleeve shirts as our kind of giveaway this year. So if people got cold, they at least had one more layer to put on.
There you go. All right. Final question for you. If I could give you all construction power and you could snap your fingers and innovate one thing in construction, what would you choose to innovate?
Payments.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like all roads lead to payments, I've found, because all this integration, interoperability stuff, if you can't tie it to dollars and cents, then it doesn't go anywhere. So
Yeah,
I
show me
think
the money.
Payments and like tracking payments and that whole side of thing is going to be, that's where we need to go.
Nice. Awesome. Well, always fun to sync up and chat with you, Nathan. Thanks for coming back on the show once more.
Thank you. Yeah. I expect a belt. Yeah.
There you go. Once all the tabulations and we get a recount and all that stuff.
I got my Plexus shield from Chad. I want my bridging the gap belt.
I like it. We'll see what we can do on that.
Yeah, you heard it here.
I like it.